Hi, happy Labor Day. It's Sunday, but I'm sure many of you are out celebrating. And I thought, since I'm in my place of peace, and I'll show you that in a minute, I just wanted to tell my story. This is a get to know me, because it kind of goes along with all my videos about life and its griefs. So I just thought I want you to know me so that you can connect more, so that you can relate more and feel openly more with me, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help those that are in distress and disease over personal things going on in their life, whether it be finances, whether it be problems, whether it be marital, relationship, whatever, maybe family, all those kind of things. And, or maybe you lost a loved one, which for me, that's my story. And family, that's another part of my story. And so we all go through the same things, not together, but in different parts of our life. But you know what? It never goes away. It's always in our thoughts. There's things that flare up our thoughts. It's in our hearts. It affects us. And so I just wanted, when I'm in my own head and things are really bothering me, I come out here. Look. I come out here to this beautiful lake, and being that it's Labor Day weekend, I'm really lucky that my spot is here for me to sit and enjoy. Am I going to sit on that nasty picnic table? No. I have this thing about germs. And anyway, getting back to me and my little meditation place. Let me get the keys out of the car. Me and my meditation place, and why it's so vital for me to come out here. And I come out here a lot. As you all know, ever since the age of 4, I lost my grandfather. And then at the age of 8, I lost my mother. And I have 3 other siblings. But I was a change of life baby. So shortly after my mother died, my oldest sibling moved, got his own place, because at the time his career demanded that he live in the suburb he worked. Shortly thereafter, my older sister got married, and I you know, these things happened. My mother died the day before Easter in April of 63. And like I said, my brother got a new career and he moved out of the house, and he was the oldest. And then my sister, oh, not to stop the story, but you got to see this. I hope you could see. Wait, am I getting it? That black butterfly. I can't tell, and I can't flip the... Oh, well, there's a black butterfly. To me, that's a synchronicity. That's a spiritual sign. But anyway, getting back to this story. So my mother died in April. My sister got married in January, the following January. And so then it was one other sister and me, right? Well, I don't know how many years later. My sister moved out. It was only a couple, which left just me and Dad. And we ended up becoming very, very close. I was his helper. I was his right hand. Even though I was a girl. Yeah. Dad needed help. The first adventure he had me go through, he was laying a sidewalk along the side of the house, going from the driveway to the backyard. And so at the age of 8, or maybe I was 9 by then, I learned how to lay a sidewalk and level concrete for a nice sidewalk. And then shortly thereafter, I learned how to paint a garage door. And then after that, my dad decided, well, she needs to learn how to work on my car with me. And so I became my own personal auto mechanic. It really came in handy because I never had to worry about paying a mechanic. I was able to do everything myself. And then as time went on, when it came time for me to get my driver's license and that, before he'd let me drive, he made me rotate all 4 tires on his car. What a lesson that was. How do you jack up one end and rotate a tire with nothing, the starting point? But I learned how to do it. I got through it. And we did everything together. Doctor visits, all kinds. We did everything together. I had a totally different relationship with my father than my siblings. To them, Dad was the breadwinner. Dad was the guy who ran the show. But for me, I didn't look at him that way. So time went on, and he had a big family. And there were 4 brothers and 2 sisters. One brother died at the age of 3. I do believe he died from tuberculosis. I do believe that's the story I heard. So that left him with 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Now, we were a very, very tight-knit Irish Catholic family. Very tight. If one brother needed help, all of them went. And nobody ever did anything alone in that family. And so because the family was that tight, I was right there. They meant everything to me because that's how I was raised. Now, on my mom's side of the family, she was 46 when she dropped out of a massive heart attack. Like I said, I was 8. It was in 1963. Well, a few years later, her sister died at the age of 46 from a massive heart attack. Well, her younger sister, prior to my mom dying, she lost a younger sister during childbirth. I don't know the story. All I know is she was giving birth and she died. The baby lived, but my aunt did not. But I don't remember that aunt. That was before, I don't even know if that was before I was born. So anyway, Mom died in 63. My other aunt died, I don't know, a couple years later, a year later, something like that. And at the same age, 46, massive heart attack, just like Mom. And then a few years later, Mom's oldest sister died. She was older though. She made it to her 50s. That family, me and my siblings, we looked at the ages of that family when they passed on. Now keep in mind, when I was born, Mom's parents were already deceased. So I never got to meet Mom's, my grandma and grandpa from Mom. I never got that. So everything was about Dad's family, okay? I'm just going through the sequence of the deaths that I've been through. And so after I lost Mom's 2 siblings, all of a sudden, Dad's getting older, and now we're jumping ahead. He retired, and the first thing he started to get sick with was his legs. He wasn't getting good circulation in the feet and the legs, and come to find out, he had cardiovascular disease, and had to have a bypass on his legs. And boy, I'm telling you what, you talk about gutting a fish. That's what it looked like. They cut him from one ankle all the way up across the abdomen, all the way down to the other ankle, and did a bypass on whatever main arteries they did. And so by then, I had kids of my own, and I was married, but he lived in Wisconsin, and I lived in Chicago. But I would travel. I would travel that distance back and forth. And, you know, when there was something major going on, and of course, every year on vacation, I went there. And all of a sudden, we got word that, oh no, I missed a step. My dad's brother, his youngest brother, was married, obviously, to his wife, which was my aunt. And that aunt and I were extremely close. She was like a second mother to me. And they only had one kid. And all of a sudden we got word that this aunt while driving, had a massive heart attack and died in the car. She ended up, because of the heart attack, she ended up hitting a light pole. And the car stopped, and that's when they realized after an autopsy, her hitting a light pole didn't kill her. It was a heart attack. She actually, were kind of hoping she was dead when she hit the pole. Anyway, this uncle went through that. And me and the son, his son, we were best friends. All through life, we were best friends. Now, shortly after my aunt died, my cousin came over and we were hanging out, and he left. He came over to show me his new motorcycle, and he left. And that evening, I got a phone call from my sister. And she asked me, she goes, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yeah." You know, I wasn't, but I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "He died. He got hit on his motorcycle and died." This blew me away because it was only like 6 months prior. My uncle lost his wife, and now my uncle lost his only son. And to me, that was like losing a mother figure. And now I'm losing my cousin, who's my best friend, who I can confide in everything to. And that was the start of it. We didn't think my uncle was going to survive. I mean, he lost 40 years of his life living with my aunt, and they had this son, and he loses it all. Anyway, he put his life back together and met a wonderful woman. Wonderful. She was also a widow. And so they understood each other's grief. And shortly after that, we get a phone call that my dad's older sister was just diagnosed with cancer. And then we get another notice a while later, and by while I'm saying a couple years, that the oldest sister was just diagnosed with cancer. Now, the second oldest, the two girls in Dad's family, they were the oldest. The brothers were all younger than them. And so my Aunt C, not going to use names, I use first initials. My Aunt C had a mastectomy, and they didn't get it all. So she had to go through the chemo and all that. Now, my Aunt H, the oldest, who's also diagnosed with breast cancer, she went through the surgery, and they got all hers. She was good. But in the meantime, Aunt C was failing really bad. And eventually, she passed. about the time she passed, the uncles were noticing that the oldest sister was starting to stutter. And so then we go a couple of years. Mind you, all this is taking place consecutively, like every 2 years. We had my Aunt E, my cousin, then my Aunt C, and then all of a sudden we get a phone call. The uncle who put his life back together, his wife got diagnosed with cancer. So we're thinking, oh no, that man's going to lose a second wife? Well, we were really, really, really worried about him. And there was nothing they could do with her. By the time they diagnosed her, it was all throughout her body. And so she was getting weaker and weaker and was getting to the point where she could barely walk. And my uncle told her, he says, I'm not feeling really well tonight. I got to go to the bathroom. And he went into the bathroom, and all of a sudden she heard this thump, bad thump. She knew he fell, and she made her way over to the bathroom and found him deceased on the bathroom floor. So you see how God works. He knew mentally, my uncle, after putting his life together, losing a wife, a son, and he finds this wonderful woman, and now she's dying of cancer. God knew he couldn't handle that, so he took my uncle first. And exactly 2 weeks to the day, his wife died of cancer. In the meantime, we get over all that, and Aunt C, who had a mastectomy, and they didn't get it all, is getting worse and worse. And eventually she went down. She passed. So my father's now grieving the loss of, prior to that, his mother died. Before any of them. I forgot to say that. And so there was 2 siblings down that had passed. And then and an uncle. And it was like every 2 years, the married partners would die, or another sibling would die. And this went on through my whole life. It was like one after another, and then all of a sudden, in the meantime, my neighborhood was getting really, really bad. It was unsafe for my children. They were preteen years, and a lot of gang violence and stuff. And my father's like, move toward me. And like I said, he lived in Wisconsin. And I'm like, yeah, I need a change. My boys need a nice, safe area to grow up and go to high school in. And so I made the move. And I would say probably 4 years later, my dad's kidneys failed and he had to start dialysis. So it was like God sent that I moved there, and he wasn't alone. And every third day he would have to go for dialysis. And I would look at his face and I could see the deterioration. I could see the toll that it was taking on him. And I just knew his time was coming. And yeah, dialysis started shortly before Thanksgiving and February 26th. I walked into his apartment in the morning for breakfast. I walked into his apartment and found him dead in the recliner. That image will never, ever, ever leave my head. Not because it was my father, but because he was more than my father. He was my best friend. He looked out for me. I looked out for him. We were beyond what you would call father-daughter relationship. Look at it more like a best friend, that when you're down and out, you got somebody to turn to. Or when they're down and out, you're right there for them. That was the relationship that me and Dad had. There wasn't one of his doctor visits that I missed. In the meantime, I would have to go to the doctor now and then. And there was no going alone. Dad insisted on going with me. And that's just how close we were. So me finding him in his recliner, and that was in 1992. Me telling this story to you, I could still see him in the recliner like it was yesterday. Awful. Well, then the other two brothers eventually died, and now Dad's whole family is gone, obviously. And in 2010, I moved to this small rural community in 2003. And my oldest son, he'd come visit me. And he was married, had a little baby. And he's like, Mom, I want to raise my boy here. I don't want to raise my boy in Chicago or the suburbs of Chicago. I'm like, great. So we found a house for him to rent. And he came to town and took a look at it, and he made the arrangements with the lease and, all that, and he rented the house. And then they moved here. Well, it turns out the girl I knew he married, her personality was nothing like that. What I thought he was marrying, boy, did I have that all wrong. She was a nutcase. I mean, play the system, con artist, you name it. She didn't want nothing to do with her own son. She never did. My son changed every diaper. Now this is before I found out the truth. My son changed every diaper, took care of him. She got him fired from his job because she didn't want to take care of the baby. And then she says, well, just live on unemployment until you can't. Well, in the meantime, that's when he moved by me. And, you know, I ended up staying with him because my relationship that I moved here for fell apart. And he insisted on me moving in with them. They had a 2-story old farmhouse. Him, the boy who is now a toddler, little older than a toddler, pre-K age. They lived upstairs. The whack job lived downstairs. And that's how they lived. My son was afraid to leave her because 9 out of 10, the mother's going to get custody of the child. My son wasn't going to take that risk, leaving his boy with this live off the system con artist. So time went on. In 2010, December 15th, I came home from work. I always worked the second shift. I came home from work and he come into my room. We'd always sit and visit before it was bedtime, and my bedtime wasn't until 3 o'clock in the morning because I work second shift. And he came into the room and he goes, Mom, I'm not feeling good. I'm like, what's the matter? He's like, I'm getting a pain up my right arm. He's like, and I'm having trouble breathing, and he's tapping his chest. Well, my son had a history of respiratory infections, bronchitis, things like that. It was December, right? And I'm like, okay, take it easy, take some deep breaths, go stand outside, breathe in that cold air, because I worked in hospital. I know for a fact, if you've got respiratory issues, bronchitis, that kind of thing, cold air opens up the breathing, right? And you're able to breathe easier. So I wanted to, that's what I thought it was. You know, anything heart related, you always hear, oh, pain up the left arm. Well, it was his right arm that was bothering him. And being a mom, we kind of go into denial. And I'm like, go outside in this, because it was winter. Go outside, breathe in this cold air, and see if you get any relief. So we did that. And then he comes back. And he goes, I am feeling a little better, Mom. And he goes into his room. Then all of a sudden, within 5 minutes, he comes rushing back into my room, and he goes, Mom, take me to the hospital. And I'm like, what's the matter? And he goes, it's worse, Mom. Take me to the hospital. So I grab my keys. We go down to my vehicle. He gets in the passenger side. And here I am driving back to work because I worked in the hospital 17 miles away. So I'm driving to the hospital. About halfway to the hospital, He said, Mom, turn the car around. Take me home. I'm like, what? We're halfway there. He's like, I'm feeling better. Take me home. I don't want to sit in the emergency room all night long. Take me home. I'm like, okay. I turn the car around, head back to our town. I get right on the edge of entering our town, and he looked at me, he goes, get me an ambulance now. And I'm like, I could have had you at the hospital. He says, Mom, get me an ambulance. So right a block down the street from where we were is the police station. I pull in there and I'm like, get an ambulance. In the meantime, my son is pacing around in front of the police station, right? And he's holding his arm and he's trying to breathe. And the officer is standing right out there and he's like, have a seat, have a seat. And my son looked at him right in the face and he goes, if I sit down, I'll never get up. That'll be the end of me. Then it dawned on me. Oh my God. He's having a heart attack. That's why he didn't want me. He was afraid of having a heart attack in my car, which is why he had me turn around. Because if he was going to die, he'd rather die in an ambulance than in my car. That's when I realized what was going on. So the ambulance got there and they told me just follow us, you know. Well, I couldn't follow them. They were doing like 90 miles an hour. And trust me, the trip from my town to the next town over, it's like playing dodgeball with deer, right? Now we're going on 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm trying to keep up. I get to the hospital, the ambulance is already there. I get to the hospital and I'm not seeing anybody. Nobody. Now I work there. I'm an emergency room registration clerk. I know all the nurses, I know the doctor, I had just gotten off of work. And I'm not seeing anybody. So I went walking in trauma room 1. Because that door was shut. I knew that's where they put him. I opened up the door and they're doing CPR on my son. In the meantime, I have other nurses that grabbed me by the arms, that came up from behind me, pulled me out of there, and they put me in a different room in the emergency room. And they sat with me and sat with me. And I'm just screaming at God and begging him not to take my son. And then the doctor came in and he just looked at me and he says, Joan, I'm sorry, we did everything we could. So to make a long story short, we went through that. After all the death I've been through from the age of 4 on, every 2 years, throughout my life, even with my dad, there is no pain greater than losing a child. None. And I know many of you know that pain. In the meantime, it took me 2 years to get custody of my grandson. And I finally got full custody, 2.5 years. I finally got full custody of my grandson. And to this day, that boy lives with me. He's 22 years old. My son would be so proud. He's 22 years old, graduated high school with a 4.0 grade point average. He's smart as a whip, just like his father was. Went to college, got an associate's in business finance, and now he's having a problem finding a job, but he is working part-time at a coffee shop. Loves that. So that's my life. That's why I decided to make my goal, because I have lost everybody in my family, from parents to aunts and uncles, and I had a best friend die of MS. My sister-in-law died of MS, whom I was so close to. That would be my brother's wife. And now my brother's got Alzheimer's, or dementia. And he's in the hospital. Not doing well at all. He's got pneumonia. That will be my first sibling. And then my other sibling in dementia in a nursing home. But thank God she's healthy so far. Just the mind is not there. I do have one sibling. We're staying very close connected. That's my oldest sister. And she's fine. She's doing well. She keeps busy. But my generation broke Mom's cycle of dying in your 40s. Now, I did have I did have a heart attack when I was 42. Knock on wood, thank God. Thank you, Jesus. He let me live through that one. And I went through all that death, and did a lot of talking to God, and I'm like, what can I do with all this experience? What can I do? Then it dawned on me. Work with grief. Work with grief. Help people who are hurting. That's why the name of my channel is Life in Its Griefs. I tried once before to open up a grief group on YouTube, and it didn't take off. Nobody was even watching the videos, and I'm like, well, I'm going about this the wrong way. I need to deal with grief, life and its griefs. I mean, we get grief from everything, right? We get grief from our kids, fighting, arguing, raising hell. That causes us grief. Relationship griefs, friends cause us grief sometimes. Family causes us grief sometimes. Just life in itself, employment. Look at the job market. You telling me you don't feel grief? That's why the channel's called Life and Its Griefs. And I'm open to talk about anything. Anything. And I'm surely ready to talk one-on-one with any of you that are hurting from the death of a very close family member or a child. Because trust me, there ain't nothing that hurts worse than losing a child that you created in your body. Nothing hurts worse than that. Trust me, I know. Anyway, I've had you on here long enough. Now you know my story. Now you know who I am. Now you know why I have this channel. I want you to interact with me. I want to know your story. Let's talk. If you want to send me a private email, my email is hit more button on the bottom. Hit the more button. My email is there. Send me an email if you don't feel comfortable putting it in the comments. Don't be afraid. I do not judge. You need to talk. We'll talk. Please like this video. Please share this video. I need the algorithms to go up because you know what? I'm sick of only 2 or 3 people seeing this. I just want you to know I'm here for you. God bless you all. And enjoy the peace and serenity wherever you can. We will talk soon. I love you. Bye-bye.